The courtroom smelled like old wood and broken promises. I sat there in my second-best shirt, the one without grease stains, watching my daughter lean over to whisper something to her lawyer. She was smiling. That should have been my first clue that this whole thing was rigged from the start. Judge Patricia Henley sat up there behind her bench like she owned the world, and maybe in this room she did. I recognized her face from somewhere, but I couldn't place it until Emily, my daughter, turned and gave her a little wave. Not a formal nod, a wave, like they were meeting for brunch instead of deciding who got to keep my life's work. "Mr. Brennan," Judge Henley said, looking down at me over her reading glasses. "I've reviewed the preliminary motions filed by your daughter's counsel. Do you understand the nature of these proceedings?" I understood plenty. I understood that my own kid was trying to take everything I'd built over 30 years and claim I was too senile or broken or grief-stricken to run my own business. I understood that her husband, that smooth-talking parasite, had probably put her up to this whole thing. And I understood that the woman who was supposed to be impartial had just smiled back at Emily like they shared a secret. "Yes, Your Honor," I said. My lawyer, David Foster, touched my arm gently. He was a good man, methodical and calm, the kind who actually read every word of every document. "I understand my daughter thinks I'm incompetent." Emily's smile widened. She was 32 years old and looked like her mother. Same dark hair, same sharp cheekbones. But somewhere along the way, she'd lost Mary's kindness. Or maybe she'd never had it. Mary used to say Emily was ambitious. I just thought she was mean. "Mr. Brennan," Judge Henley continued, "this is a competency hearing to determine whether you are capable of managing Brennan Auto Body and its associated assets. Your daughter has expressed concerns about your mental state following your wife's passing." "My mental state is fine," I said. "What's not fine is my daughter trying to steal from me while I'm still breathing." David squeezed my arm harder this time. I shut up. Emily leaned forward, whispering to her lawyer again. Then she turned to look directly at me, and this time she didn't smile. She mouthed 4 words. "I'll leave you nothing." Funny thing about that statement, she was going to leave me with nothing. Nothing that I'd built, nothing that I'd earned, nothing that had my name on it for 3 decades. The garage, the house, the truck, the tools, all nothing. And she was going to do it with a judge who was apparently her old friend, and a legal system that didn't give a damn about a 60-year-old man who smelled like motor oil. But here's what Emily didn't know, what neither she nor her slick husband nor Judge Henley knew. I'd taught Emily how to lie. I'd taught her young, not on purpose, but kids watch everything. They see you tell the cable company you were home when you weren't. They see you tell Mom that yes, you remembered to pick up milk when you actually forgot and swung by the store on the way home. Small lies, survival lies, the kind that grease the wheels of normal life. I taught her well, but I forgot to teach her the most important lesson. Don't lie to someone who taught you how. The hearing droned on. Emily's lawyer, a sharp-looking woman named Victoria Ross, presented evidence. Bank statements showing erratic spending, a statement from Dr. Patterson, my GP, noting that I'd missed 2 appointments for my annual physical. "Your Honor," Victoria said, standing with perfect posture in her perfect suit, "Mr. Brennan has demonstrated a clear inability to maintain even basic self-care, let alone run a successful business. His daughter, Emily Brennan Cooper, has generously offered to take over management of the business until such time as Mr. Brennan can demonstrate improved capacity." Generously offered. That's rich. David stood up. "Your Honor, my client has run Brennan Auto Body for 30 years without incident. His business has an excellent reputation, satisfied customers, and healthy finances. It's evidence of grief." Judge Henley made a note on her pad. "I'll take that under advisement. Ms. Ross, do you have additional evidence?" "We do, Your Honor." Victoria clicked a button, and a screen behind her lit up with photos. My house, my garage, me. The photos looked bad, I'll admit that. I looked thinner than I had 6 months ago. The house looked messier. The garage had papers stacked on my desk that I hadn't filed yet. But that's life after your wife dies. Mary had been the one who kept the house organized. She'd been the one who remembered to throw out old newspapers and wash the windows and make sure I ate something other than sandwiches for dinner. Without her, things got messy. That's not incompetence. That's just what happens when you lose the person who made your world make sense. These photos were taken over the last 3 months, Victoria said. They show a clear decline in Mr. Brennan's ability to maintain his environment. I wanted to stand up and tell everyone in that courtroom that these photos were taken by my daughter, who'd been showing up unannounced at my house and my garage, taking pictures without asking, making notes about things that were none of her business. I wanted to tell them that Emily hadn't visited me more than twice a year before Mary died, but suddenly she was my biggest fan, my most concerned relative, my loving daughter who just wanted what was best for dear old Dad. But David had told me to stay quiet unless he asked me to speak, so I stayed quiet and seethed. Judge Henley studied the photos. Then she looked at me. Mr. Brennan, how would you describe your current state of mind? I'd describe it as angry, I said. David's hand moved toward my arm again, but I kept going. My wife died 8 months ago. My daughter, who couldn't be bothered to call me on my birthday for the last 5 years, suddenly decided I needed help. She and her husband started showing up at my house, my business, asking questions about my accounts and my property. Then one day I come home and find that my locks have been changed. For my safety, Emily said, and I have to ask permission to enter my own house. Emily's face flushed. Good. Let her be embarrassed. Is that true, Ms. Ross? Judge Henley asked. Did your client change the locks on Mr. Brennan's home? Victoria didn't miss a beat. For his safety, Your Honor. There had been incidents. What incidents? I said, louder than I meant to. David stood up. Your Honor, if there were incidents, we'd like to see documentation. Police reports, witness statements, anything. Victoria smiled. It was the same smile Emily had been wearing. The incidents were private, Your Honor. Family matters. Mr. Brennan had become verbally aggressive toward his daughter and son-in-law when they attempted to help him manage his finances. I had become verbally aggressive. That's one way to put it. Another way would be to say, I told Emily and her husband Brandon to get the hell out of my garage when they showed up with a tablet and started asking me to explain every expense over $50 for the last 6 months. Another way would be to say I raised my voice when Brandon tried to install some kind of tracking app on my phone to help me remember appointments. Your Honor, David said, Mr. Brennan has a right to privacy and autonomy. Even if his daughter disagrees with his lifestyle or his organizational skills, that doesn't constitute legal grounds for removing his control over his own assets. Judge Henley nodded slowly, but her eyes kept drifting back to Emily, and Emily kept looking confident. That's when I knew for sure. This wasn't going to be a fair hearing. This was a done deal. Whatever relationship Emily had with Judge Henley, old college friends, sorority sisters, whatever, it was enough to tip the scales. The evidence didn't matter. The truth didn't matter. What mattered was that Emily wanted something, and Judge Henley was going to help her get it. The hearing continued for another hour. More evidence, more testimony. Emily took the stand and cried. Actual tears, talking about how worried she was about me, how she just wanted to help, how she couldn't stand watching me destroy everything Mom and I had built together. That last part almost made me laugh. Mary and I had built the garage together. Emily had spent most of her teenage years complaining about how embarrassing it was that her dad worked with his hands. She'd gone to college, gotten her real estate license, married Brandon the finance consultant, and made it very clear that she'd moved up in the world. The garage was beneath her. I was beneath her. Until Mary died, and suddenly there were assets to fight over. When the hearing finally ended, Judge Henley announced she'd issue a ruling within 3 days. Given the sensitive nature of these family matters, she said, I want to review all the evidence carefully. We filed out of the courtroom. Emily and Brandon walked ahead of us, already talking in low voices. Emily's heels clicked on the marble floor. Brandon had his hand on her back, the perfect, supportive husband. David and I stopped in the hallway. What do you think? I asked him. He loosened his tie. Honestly, I think the judge already made up her mind before we walked in. Yeah, I said. I got that feeling too. But we're not done, David said. If she rules against you, we'll appeal. We'll fight this. I nodded, but I wasn't listening anymore. I was watching Emily and Brandon at the end of the hallway. They'd stopped to talk to someone, another lawyer maybe, or a friend. Emily was animated, gesturing with her hands, smiling wide. She'd just spent an hour pretending to cry about her poor, incompetent father, and now she was laughing. Brandon saw me watching. He said something to Emily, and she turned. For a moment, we locked eyes across the distance. Then she smiled, that same satisfied smile from the courtroom, and turned away. I reached into my pocket and felt the folded paper there, the one David didn't know about yet, the one that was going to change everything. But not today. Today, I was just the grieving widower who couldn't take care of himself. Today, I was the incompetent old man who needed his daughter's help. Tomorrow, I'd show them who they were really dealing with. Before we continue, hit the hype button, subscribe, and like the video to help the channel grow. Tell us which city you are from in the comments. We'd love to get to know our audience better. It started 6 months ago, about 2 months after Mary's funeral. Emily and Brandon showed up at the house on a Sunday afternoon without calling first. I was in the garage out back, trying to rebuild a carburetor for Mrs. Henderson's old Chevy. The work was good. It kept my hands busy and my mind off the empty house. Dad? Emily called from the driveway. I wiped my hands on a rag and walked out into the sunshine. Emily was dressed like she was going to a business meeting, slacks, blouse, heels that were completely inappropriate for gravel. Brandon stood next to her in khakis and a polo shirt, looking like every other finance guy in America. Hey, I said. Didn't know you were coming by. We wanted to check on you, Emily said. She walked over and hugged me quickly, barely making contact. How are you doing? I'm fine. The house looks a little rough, Brandon said, glancing past me toward the back door. When's the last time you mowed the lawn? I looked at the lawn. It was maybe 3 inches too long. I've been busy. That's what we wanted to talk to you about, Emily said. She exchanged a glance with Brandon, and he nodded. Dad, we're worried about you, the house, the business, your health. It's a lot for one person to manage. I've been managing fine for 30 years. That was when Mom was here, Emily said gently. Too gently. Like she was talking to a child. Now it's just you, and we think you might need some help. I should have seen it coming. I should have recognized the tone, the careful words, the way they'd clearly rehearsed this conversation. But I was still in that fog that comes after losing someone, where everything feels slightly unreal, and you're just trying to get through each day. I appreciate the concern, I said, but I'm doing okay. Brandon pulled out his phone. Emily mentioned you might say that. We actually put together some information that might help. There are services available, meal delivery, housekeeping, even financial management. That could make things easier. I don't need financial management. Dad, Emily said, you forgot to pay the water bill last month. They sent a shut-off notice. That was true. I'd found the notice stuffed in the mailbox, paid it online, and forgotten about it. It happened. I paid it. After they threatened to shut off your water, Brandon said. That's exactly the kind of thing we're talking about. Small details that slip through the cracks until they become big problems. I looked at my daughter. She was watching me with this expression of concern that didn't quite reach her eyes. What do you want, Emily? We want to help. That's all. But that wasn't all. Over the next few weeks, they kept showing up. Sometimes together, sometimes separately. They brought food I didn't ask for. They started organizing things in the house when I wasn't looking. Emily went through Mary's closet one day while I was at the garage and donated half her clothes without asking me first. "You weren't using them?" she said when I confronted her. "They were just taking up space." "They were Mary's things." "They were old clothes, Dad. She would have wanted someone else to use them." I wanted to tell her that she had no idea what Mary would have wanted, that she barely knew her mother by the end, that she'd been too busy with her own life to visit more than twice a year. But I didn't say any of that. I just asked her not to touch anything else. She nodded and apologized and promised she wouldn't. 2 days later, I found her in my home office, going through my desk drawers. "What are you doing?" She jumped, guilty. "I was just looking for a pen." "There are pens in the kitchen." "I was also thinking we should organize your paperwork," she said, recovering quickly. "Some of these documents are really old. We should probably digitize everything, set up a better filing system. Emily, get out of my office. Dad, get out." She left, but the damage was done. She'd been looking for something. Financial documents, property deeds, something. And she hadn't found it because I'd moved all the important stuff to the safe at the garage after the first time she helped by reorganizing my filing cabinet. That's when I started to understand. This wasn't about helping. This was about control. This was about Emily and Brandon positioning themselves to take over everything I owned. The breaking point came about a month before the hearing. I came home from the garage one evening and found that the locks on my house had been changed. My key didn't work. I stood there on my own front porch, trying my key over and over until Brandon opened the door from inside. "Hey, John," he said, using my first name like we were buddies. "Sorry about the confusion. We had new locks installed today." "Why?" "Security upgrade," he said cheerfully. "Emily was worried about break-ins. Your old locks were pretty worn out." "Where's my new key?" "Right here." He handed me a shiny new key on a ring. "We each have one too, just in case of emergency." I looked down at the key in my hand. "You have a key to my house." "Just for emergencies," Brandon repeated. "Emily thought it would be good if we could check on you if something happened." I pushed past him into my own house. Emily was in the kitchen, unpacking groceries I hadn't asked for. "Hi, Dad," she said brightly. "I picked up some things for you. You were running low on milk." "You changed my locks." "For your safety." "This is my house, Emily." "I know that, Dad. We're just trying to help." But her eyes said something different. Her eyes said, "We're taking over, and there's nothing you can do about it." I should have kicked them out right then. I should have called a lawyer, changed the locks back, told them both to go to hell. But I was tired. I was still grieving. And some small part of me, some stupid, hopeful part, thought that maybe Emily really was just worried about me. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe this was what concerned children did. I was an idiot. The next week, Brandon showed up at the garage. I was under a Honda Accord, replacing a worn-out exhaust system, when I heard footsteps on the concrete. "John?" Brandon's voice echoed in the bay. "You got a minute?" I rolled out from under the car and stood up, wiping my hands. "What do you need?" "I wanted to talk to you about the business." He looked around the garage like he was appraising it. "This is a great operation you've got here." "Thanks. But I noticed you're still doing everything manually. Scheduling, invoicing, inventory. It's all paper-based, right?" "It works." "It works," Brandon agreed, "but it's inefficient. I could set you up with a cloud-based management system that would streamline everything, track expenses, manage appointments, even handle payroll." "I don't have payroll. It's just me and Randy part-time." "Still," Brandon said, pulling out his tablet, "you should see this software. It's what we recommend to all our small business clients. It would save you hours every week." I looked at the screen he was showing me. It looked complicated. "I'll think about it. Actually, I already set up a trial account for you." He swiped through screens, showing me dashboards and graphs. I just need you to approve access to your business bank account so it can sync your transactions. And there it was, the real reason for the visit. He wanted access to my business accounts. No, I said. Brandon blinked. No? I'm not giving you access to my bank accounts. John, it's just so the software can work properly. I said no. His friendly expression slipped for just a second. I saw something underneath, frustration, maybe anger. Then he smiled again. Okay, no problem. Just trying to help. After he left, I called David Foster. I'd known David for 15 years. He'd handled Mary's will and helped me with a property dispute back in 2019. He was semi-retired now, but he still took on a few clients. David, I said when he answered, I need to talk to you about my daughter. What's going on? I told him everything, the visits, the locks, the access to my accounts. David listened quietly, asking a few questions, but mostly letting me talk. John, he said when I finished, I think you need to be very careful here. What you're describing sounds like the beginning of a financial exploitation case. She's my daughter. I know. But that doesn't mean she can't hurt you. He paused. Do you have copies of all your important documents? Property deeds, business registration, bank statements? Most of them. I want you to make copies of everything and bring them to my office. And John, don't tell Emily or Brandon you're doing this. I followed his advice. Over the next week, I quietly gathered every important document I could find. Property deed to the house, title to the garage, business licenses, bank statements, Mary's will, everything. Mary's will had been simple. She left everything to me, with the understanding that I'd leave it all to Emily when I died. Standard stuff. But there was something else. Something Mary had told me about a week before she died, when she was still lucid but knew the cancer was winning. There's an addendum, she'd whispered, holding my hand in her hospital bed. To the will. David has a copy, but I made another one for you. It's in my jewelry box, the one my mother gave me. What kind of addendum? Protection, she'd said. In case Emily ever... I just want to make sure you're protected. I'd meant to look for it after the funeral, but I'd been too much of a mess. Then things got busy at the garage, and I forgot. But now, sitting in my office with copies of documents spread across my desk, I remembered. I went home and searched for Mary's jewelry box. Emily had organized the bedroom, so it took me 20 minutes to find it shoved in the back of a closet. I opened it carefully, looking through the necklaces and earrings and rings that Mary had collected over the years. No document, no addendum. I checked every drawer, every box, every possible place Mary might have hidden it. Nothing. That's when I realized Emily had already taken it. She'd gone through Mary's things, found the addendum, and taken it. She didn't know what it was. She probably thought it was just another copy of the will, but she had it. I called David. The addendum, I said. Do you have a copy? I have Mary's signed copy in my files, he said. Why? What does it say? There was a pause, papers rustling. Then David read it to me, and I understood why Mary had been so careful. If Emily tried to take my property while I was still alive, through legal action, coercion, or any other means, she would forfeit her right to inherit anything at all. Mary had seen this coming. Somehow she'd known that Emily might try something like this, and she'd protected me. David, I said, I need to find the other copy of this document. Why? I have the legally valid one right here. Because I need to know if Emily has it. And if she does, I need to know what she plans to do with it. That was 3 weeks before the hearing. 3 weeks before Emily filed her petition to declare me incompetent and take over my assets. 3 weeks before Judge Patricia Henley, Emily's old friend from college I'd learned, agreed to hear the case. Now, standing in the courthouse hallway after the hearing, I knew exactly what I had to do. I had to find that document before Judge Henley issued her ruling. and I had to do it without Emily or Brandon figuring out what I was looking for. David walked up beside me. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said. "I'm fine. You've got that look." "What look?" "The look you get when you're about to do something stupid." I smiled. "Not stupid. Strategic." "John, I need to get into Emily's house," I said quietly. "Legally." David sighed. "And how do you plan to do that?" "I'm still thinking about it." I watched Emily and Brandon disappear around a corner. "But I'll figure it out." Emily didn't drop the restraining order. On Monday morning, I sat in another courtroom with David, waiting for another judge to decide another piece of my life. Brandon was there with Emily, looking smug. They'd brought Victoria Ross back too, clearly intending to go for the throat. But something was different. Emily barely looked at Brandon. She sat stiffly, arms crossed, like she didn't want to be there at all. The judge was younger than Henley, maybe 40, with sharp eyes that didn't miss much. His name was Judge Raymond Torres, and according to David, he had a reputation for cutting through nonsense quickly. "Ms. Ross," Judge Torres said, "I've reviewed your filing. Your clients are requesting a restraining order against Mr. John Brennan based on allegations of harassment and extortion. Is that correct?" "Yes, Your Honor," Victoria said, standing. "Mr. Brennan has been following my clients, making threats, and attempting to coerce them into abandoning legitimate legal actions." "Mr. Foster?" The judge looked at David. "Your Honor, the situation is more complex than Ms. Ross suggests. Mr. Brennan recently prevailed in a competency hearing filed by his daughter. Since that hearing, he's been attempting to protect himself from what he perceives as continued harassment by his daughter and son-in-law. By following them and recording their activities, by documenting behavior that he felt was threatening to his well-being and property rights." Judge Torres looked at me. "Mr. Brennan, did you confront Mr. Cooper at a bar last week?" I stood. "Yes, Your Honor." "Did you threaten to expose personal information about him unless he agreed to leave you alone?" "I offered him a deal, Your Honor. I didn't threaten him." "Ms. Ross, do you have evidence of this confrontation?" Victoria played the recording. Brandon's voice filled the courtroom. "What do you want?" And then my voice. "You leave me alone. You stop poisoning Emily against me. And in exchange, I don't tell Emily about your gambling problem." It sounded bad. I knew it sounded bad. Taken out of context, it sounded exactly like what Victoria was claiming. Extortion. "Your Honor," David said when the recording ended, "my client was not asking for money or property. He was simply trying to protect himself from a pattern of harassment that began months ago when his daughter attempted to have him declared incompetent, by threatening to expose Mr. Cooper's private information. Information that is relevant to understanding why Mr. Cooper and Ms. Brennan Cooper were so eager to gain control of Mr. Brennan's assets in the first place." Judge Torres made a note. "Ms. Ross, what specifically do your clients want?" "A restraining order requiring Mr. Brennan to stay at least 500 feet away from their home and workplace. No contact of any kind. No phone calls, no emails, no intermediaries. That would prevent Mr. Brennan from having any relationship with his daughter," David said. "That's what my clients want," Victoria replied. Judge Torres looked at Emily. "Ms. Brennan Cooper, is that what you want?" Emily stood slowly. "Your Honor, I'm not sure." Brandon's head snapped toward her. "Emily." "Be quiet, Mr. Cooper," Judge Torres said. "Ms. Brennan Cooper, you filed this restraining order. I need to know if this is what you actually want or if you're being influenced by your husband." "I'm not being influenced," Emily said, but her voice wavered. "Then answer the question. Do you want a restraining order preventing your father from having any contact with you?" Emily looked at me for the first time since the hearing started. Her eyes were red, and I realized she'd been crying before she came in. "No," she said quietly. "I don't want that." "Emily," Brandon hissed. "Mr. Cooper, I won't tell you again to be quiet," Judge Torres said. He turned back to Emily. If you don't want a restraining order, why did you file one? Because Brandon said we had to. He said Dad was dangerous and we needed to protect ourselves. Emily's voice got stronger. But my dad isn't dangerous. He's just angry. And maybe he has a right to be angry, considering what I've put him through. The courtroom was silent. Victoria looked like she wanted to object, but didn't know what to say. Brandon's face had gone red. Judge Torres set down his pen. Ms. Brennan Cooper, do you wish to withdraw your petition? Emily looked at Brandon, then at me, then back at the judge. Yes, Your Honor. I withdraw it. Emily, what the hell are you doing? Brandon stood up, ignoring the judge's earlier warning. We talked about this. We agreed. You agreed, Emily said. I went along with it because I thought you were right. But you weren't right. You just needed money, and you saw my dad as an easy target. Your Honor, Victoria said, trying to regain control, Mr. Cooper's petition is independent of his wife's. He can pursue the restraining order on his own behalf. On what grounds? Emily said, turning on Brandon. That my dad caught you gambling away our savings? That he found out you've been lying to me for months about how much debt you're in? Emily. How much do you owe, Brandon? 50,000? 100,000? Brandon's face went from red to white. He sat down slowly. Judge Torres banged his gavel. Order. Ms. Brennan Cooper, Mr. Cooper, this is not the place for marital disputes. He looked at Victoria. Does your client wish to proceed with his individual petition? Victoria conferred with Brandon quietly. Then she said, No, Your Honor, we withdraw the petition. Both petitions are withdrawn. This hearing is dismissed. Judge Torres stood and left the courtroom before any of us could respond. I looked at Emily. She was gathering her things, not looking at Brandon. He was trying to talk to her, his voice low and urgent, but she just shook her head. David touched my arm. Let's go. We walked out into the hallway. Behind us, I could hear Brandon and Emily arguing, their voices echoing in the courtroom. Victoria came out looking irritated. What just happened? I asked David. I think your daughter just realized she married the wrong person. David smiled. And I think you might have just gotten your daughter back. But I wasn't so sure. Emily had withdrawn the restraining order, yes. She'd stood up to Brandon in court. But that didn't erase months of betrayal and fighting. That didn't fix the broken trust between us. Still, it was a start. I drove back to the garage and tried to work, but I couldn't focus. I kept thinking about Emily's face when she'd told the judge that I had a right to be angry. I kept thinking about the way she'd turned on Brandon when she realized what he'd been hiding from her. Around 4 o'clock, my phone rang. Emily's number. Hello? Dad? Her voice was small, uncertain. Can we talk? Where? Anywhere, I need to talk to you. We met at a diner halfway between the garage and her house. It was a place Mary and I used to go on Saturday mornings, before everything got complicated. Emily was already there when I arrived, sitting in a booth in the back, staring at a cup of coffee she hadn't touched. I slid into the seat across from her. How are you? I don't know. She looked up at me. Brandon and I had a fight after the hearing. A big one. He's staying at a hotel. I'm sorry. Are you? Yeah, I said. I am. I never wanted your marriage to fall apart, Emily. I just wanted you to leave me alone. I know. She wrapped her hands around her coffee cup. Dad, I need to apologize for everything. That last part hit me harder than I expected. You weren't there. I know. I should have been. I should have taken time off work and stayed at the hospital and been there for both of you. Tears started falling, and she wiped them away angrily. But I was scared. I didn't know how to handle it. So I stayed away and told myself you had everything under control. We could have used your help. I know, and I'm sorry. She took a shaky breath. Brandon kept telling me that you were falling apart after Mom died. He kept saying we needed to step in and take control before you hurt yourself. And I believed him, because it was easier than admitting that I'd abandoned you when you needed me most. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to tell her it was okay, that I forgave her, that we could move past this. But another part of me was still angry, still hurt by everything she'd done. "Why did you withdraw the restraining order?" I asked. "Because Brandon recorded your conversation at the bar. He played it for me, thinking I'd be angry at you for threatening him. But all I heard was you trying to protect yourself." She finally looked at me directly. "And I realized that everything you've done, fighting the competency hearing, confronting Brandon, all of it, you've been doing it alone, because I wasn't there to help you. I didn't need help. I needed you to stop attacking me." "I know." She wiped her eyes again. "Dad, I don't know if we can fix this. I don't know if you can ever forgive me, but I want to try, if you'll let me." I sat there looking at my daughter, this woman I'd raised who'd become someone I barely recognized. But underneath all the anger and betrayal, I could still see the little girl who'd sat at the kitchen table doing homework. I could still see Mary's daughter. "It's going to take time," I said. "I know. And you can't expect everything to go back to normal right away." "I know. But yeah," I said, "we can try." Emily smiled for the first time, and it was a real smile, not the fake one she'd been wearing in court. "Thank you." We talked for another hour, not about the court case or Brandon or the business. Just small talk, careful conversation, two people trying to remember how to be family. It wasn't easy and it wasn't comfortable, but it was something. When we finally left the diner, Emily hugged me. It was quick, awkward, but it was real. "I'll call you," she said. "Okay." I watched her drive away, and for the first time in months, I felt like maybe things might actually be okay. I was wrong. 2 days after the withdrawn restraining order, Malcolm Pierce called me. "Mr. Brennan, we need to meet. Now." "What's going on?" "Not over the phone. Can you come to my office?" Malcolm's office was in a glass tower downtown, the kind of building where everyone wore suits that cost more than my truck. The receptionist looked at me like I was lost, but she called Malcolm, and he came down to get me. "Thanks for coming," he said, leading me to a conference room. I didn't know who else to call. "What's this about?" Malcolm closed the door and pulled out his phone. "Brandon came to work yesterday and cleaned out his desk. He quit without notice, which means he knows the audit is coming and he doesn't want to be here when it hits. So he ran. Worse than that. He took files with him, client information, account details, proprietary financial strategies." Malcolm looked sick. "He's going to try to sell it to a competitor or use it to start his own firm. Either way, it's corporate espionage." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because Brandon is going to need money. A lot of money. And the only person he knows who has assets worth taking is you." Malcolm leaned forward. "Mr. Brennan, I think Brandon is going to come after your business again. But this time, he's not going to be subtle about it." I drove straight to David's office. "We have a problem." David listened to what Malcolm had told me, his expression getting grimmer. "If Brandon's desperate enough to commit corporate espionage, he might try something illegal to get at your assets." "Like what?" "Fraud, forgery. He could create fake documents claiming ownership of your business. He could file false liens against your property." David stood and started pacing. "John, I think you need to go to the police." "And tell them what? That my son-in-law might commit fraud at some point in the future? Tell them that he's made threats, that he's facing financial ruin, that he has motive to harm you financially." "They won't do anything. I need proof." "Then get proof. Set up cameras at the garage and your house. Monitor your business accounts for any unusual activity. Keep records of everything." David stopped pacing and looked at me. "And John, consider getting a gun." I'd never owned a gun in my life, never needed one. But sitting in David's office, thinking about everything Brandon had done and might do, I understood why David was suggesting it. I'll think about it, I said. That night I installed security cameras at the garage and my house. Cheap ones from a hardware store, but they worked well enough. I also changed all my passwords and set up alerts on my bank accounts for any unusual transactions. Then I waited. 2 days later, Emily called me. Dad, have you heard from Brandon? No. Why? He's not at the hotel anymore. He checked out yesterday, and he's not answering his phone. I don't know where he is. Maybe he went to a friend's place. All our friends are my friends. He doesn't have anyone. She sounded scared. Dad, I'm worried he might do something stupid. Like what? I don't know, but he's been sending me strange texts, saying that he's going to fix everything, that he's going to make things right. I didn't like the sound of that. Emily, if he contacts you, don't meet with him alone, and call me right away. Okay, she paused. Dad, I'm scared. I know, just be careful. The next morning, I got to the garage early. Randy wasn't due in until 9, so I had the place to myself. I was in my office reviewing invoices when I heard the bay door open. Randy? I called. That you? No answer. I stood up and walked out into the garage. The bay door was open, but I didn't see anyone. Hello? Then I heard footsteps behind me. I turned around and saw Brandon standing there, holding a tire iron. Brandon, I said, keeping my voice calm. What are you doing? I need money, John. His voice was shaky, desperate, just enough to get out of town and start over somewhere else. I don't have that kind of cash on hand. Bullshit. You've got money stashed away. I've seen your accounts. He moved closer, raising the tire iron slightly. I need $50,000. That's all. Just $50,000 and I disappear. Emily never has to see me again. You never have to deal with me again. And if I don't give it to you? Brandon's laugh was hollow. Then I'm going to take it. I'll forge transfer documents. I'll clean out your accounts. I'll sell your equipment. He gestured around the garage with the tire iron. I've got nothing left to lose, John. Do you understand that? Nothing. I believed him. I could see it in his eyes, that desperate, cornered look of someone who'd run out of options. Okay, I said slowly. I'll get you the money. But you need to put down the tire iron first. You think I'm stupid? I think you're desperate. But threatening me with a weapon crosses a line you can't come back from. I kept my hands visible, non-threatening. Brandon, if you hurt me, you'll go to prison. That won't solve your problems. That'll just create new ones. If I don't get money, I'm going to prison anyway. Not if you leave now. Walk away. Disappear. I won't press charges for breaking in here. I won't tell the police about the tire iron. Just leave. I need money. I'll wire you $20,000. The words came out before I'd fully thought them through. $20,000. You leave town, start over, and leave Emily alone. Deal? Brandon stared at me, the tire iron still raised. For a long moment I thought he was going to swing it. Then his arm lowered. 30,000. 25. Deal. He set the tire iron down on a workbench. Wire it to this account. He pulled out his phone and showed me a number. You've got 1 hour. If it's not there by then, I'm coming back, and next time I won't be this friendly. He left through the bay door, disappearing into the early morning light. I immediately called David. Brandon just threatened me at the garage. He demanded money. Did you agree to give it to him? Yes. 25,000. He gave me an account number. Don't wire him anything, David said sharply. That's extortion. You need to call the police right now. If I call the police, he'll know I betrayed him. He'll come back, and next time he might actually hurt someone. John, I'm going to wire him the money, but I'm going to make sure it's traceable, and I'm going to make sure Emily knows what happened. I hung up before David could argue. Then I called my bank and arranged the wire transfer, making sure to document everything. Screenshots of Brandon's account number, a written record of our conversation. The security footage from the garage cameras showing Brandon with the tire iron. Then I called Emily. "Dad? What's wrong?" "Brandon came to the garage this morning. He threatened me with a tire iron and demanded money." "Oh my God. Are you okay?" "I'm fine. But Emily, you need to know what your husband has become." I told her everything. The demand for money, the threats, the account number he'd given me. Emily was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "I'll file for divorce today, and I'll testify against him if he's charged with anything." "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." Her voice was steady now, determined. "He's not the man I married. Maybe he never was. But I'm done protecting him." After we hung up, I went back to my office and sat down heavily. My hands were shaking. I'd just been threatened by my son-in-law in my own garage, and I'd given him money to make him go away. But it wasn't over. I knew it wasn't over. Brandon was too desperate, too far gone. $25,000 would buy him maybe a few months, and then he'd be back, unless I made sure he couldn't come back. I spent the rest of the day organizing evidence, security footage, bank records, emails from Brandon, testimony from Malcolm Pierce about the corporate espionage, testimony from Emily about the threats and the harassment. By evening, I had everything I needed to file a police report and probably get Brandon arrested. But something stopped me. Emily had said she was done protecting Brandon. But was I done? Was I ready to send my daughter's husband, no matter how terrible he was, to prison? I thought about Mary. What would she have done? She'd always been tougher than me when it came to protecting what was ours. She'd have called the police without hesitation, so that's what I did.